Welcome to the Purpose to Create podcast with Natasha Wright, a business podcast for photographers and creativepreneurs who want to level up as they pursue their purpose to create. Lean in as we connect, inspire, and impact you as you build and grow your business.
I'm so hyped that you're here and listening to today's show. Today's guest is Marlena Banks, the creator of Big Idea Food, a weekly devotional that serves up dope biblical insights specifically designed to nourish entrepreneurs along their journey in business. Her ultimate mission is to elevate the influence of more creatives of faith so that together we can positively impact our world at the level God intended. In today's episode, we're chatting all about Big Idea Food. Let's go!
Hey! Thank you so much for having me, Natasha.
Thanks for being here.
Yes.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to get started. So I'm going to just jump right in, okay?
Let's do it.
All right. So what is one thing that we wouldn't find in your bio?
Oh, Lord. There's probably a lot of stuff you wouldn't find in my bio. Let's see. One thing you wouldn't find in my bio.
That people should know about you.
That people should know about me. One thing that's not in there is the fact that I've been a designer and creative director for forever. That was my bio for dang near 10 years at this point. But now that I have made a pivot into authordom, I've adjusted that a little bit. So that's a little tidbit, something that might be interesting that people might be interested in knowing.
Oh, I'm excited to hear more about that. So let's talk a little bit about your journey and your pivot into being an author.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have been, like I said, a graphic designer for forever, working on building people's brands and helping their big ideas get out into the world and out of their head. And that has been my passion for the longest. But it was a couple of years ago, I was working at my ad agency job. And I'm just getting exposed to just all kinds of additional business opportunities. And I started to think I wanted to make a pivot in my business sort of journey. At that point, I had been doing my design business since 2009. So it was 2014. So yeah, about 6 years. So it's kind of feeling like I wanted to make a move. Started researching other business avenues. So I was looking into different avenues in business. And like I said, God was kind of tapping me on the shoulder, telling me to sort of take inventory of what I had already in my hands. And when I did that, I remembered, if I were to pick the one thing that I could do in my sleep, like eyes closed, it would be teaching. I've been a teacher for the longest. Teacher through and through. And I've always been actually a youth minister at my church. So I've always been just gifted with the ability to break down spiritual truths in a way that's relatable and not super religious, and just give it to people straight. And, but I'm like, God, that's the one thing I can do with my eyes closed, but I'm not talking to you about ministry. I'm trying to get on this business game. But anyway, he just kind of kept pulling at me to okay, what can I do with that? And I don't remember the moment. I don't remember when, but he reminded me of the journals that I had written in over the years. So I'm an avid journaler, been a journaler for forever. And just over the years, I've been 10 years in entrepreneurship at this point. I've always just shared whatever I'm going through and talked to God about it in my journals. Whatever encouragement he's given me has been put down on those pages. And, he brought it back to my remembrance, and he was like, don't you think some people could use the encouragement that's in those journals? And I'm like, maybe. I hadn't really thought about it like that. Okay. So I started going back through them, and I'm like, yo, this is actually beneficial.
Right.
This is content in here. So somewhere along that line, when I realized, there was some content that I had that was beneficial to entrepreneurs who I've always been passionate about helping anyway, I got the idea for devotional. Started Googling Christian devotional for entrepreneurs, didn't see anything really coming up. So I was like, you know what, this is it. This is my lane. I know it without a shadow of a doubt. And so that's when I knew I was going to write this book. I realized that probably late 2016, early 2017, and got to work and launched the book last year in 2018. So we're about a year old now.
Oh, awesome. So tell us a little bit more about Big Idea Food, because I was one of those people who was looking for a Christian devotional for creative entrepreneurs, and I could never find one up until the point where I found out about you and your devotional. So I want to talk a little bit about the preparation for this book. And because I know that God had to take you through some things in order to get us this weekly devotional. So I want to hear a little bit more about Big Idea Food. I know it comes from your journal, but it's such an authentic truth and it relates to so many creative entrepreneurs, whether you're a Christian or not, it is relatable. So I want to hear a little bit more about what was that process like?
Yeah, what was the process like? I knew right off the bat that I really wanted the devotional to speak to people, whether you were Christian or not. I really wanted anybody to be able to benefit and just absorb whatever was in the book. So I knew right off the bat, like when it came to the cover design and things like that, and even just the way that I spoke when I wrote, it had to be relatable. I wasn't about to put crosses all over the place, like I knew the type of perspective that I wanted it to have was definitely something that could go across lines. So that was probably, as far as getting my mindset ready for how I was going to structure the book, was a big piece of the preparation process. Outside of that, so at the time of writing, I was actually about 3 years into my advertising agency position and went ahead and put in my notice because I was getting ready to make a mini leap to go back into entrepreneurship full time. Basically, I had 2 weeks before I started another job to help pay the bills while I did that. So in that 2 weeks was when I really sat down and took inventory of the journals that I had and started to just dump them all into a Google Doc. And from there, I realized, okay, yep, this is about, I can do maybe a year's worth, right? Because when you sit down and do a devotional, you have to decide, like, is it going to be a 21-day devotional or a daily or whatever? And based on the content that I had in the journals, I was like, okay, I got about 52. We going to make 52 of these things work. And so I dumped them all in the Google Doc. And from there, and one of the first steps I am always telling authors to do is make your outline. That's the biggest piece. And that helps you to like just figure out how you're going to structure your writing from there. So once I had them all dumped in that Google Doc, I started to organize them into a flow that I thought would make sense and kind of fit the flow of a year. Then the outline was ready, and it was really about like, okay, we're going to set goal every week to try to knock out, 5. Because even though the content was there and the devotionals, like the takeaway was there, it wasn't like written for anyone yet, right? It was just like talking to my journal. So I actually did have to go through and write out everything about how I got to the takeaway that I got.
Right.
So that's where the writing really came into play. And like I said, I would set a goal and it'd be like, okay, we're going to write 5 devotionals today. And then we would end up writing 2, and that's okay. Yes. But that was kind of how I structured the writing process. So yeah, as far as preparation, I would say it was a little bit of a different process for preparation because the content was initially there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like the meat was there already. So really my primary goal was just structuring and organizing the writing project.
Right. And, I have your book in front of me, and you talked a little bit about this when we kicked off the show. In week 4 of your devotional, you talk about, I already have everything that I need.
Yes.
And as creative entrepreneurs, I feel like sometimes we doubt what we have in our hand to use. Yes. We overlook the small beginnings. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about us already having what we need to get started in this creative entrepreneurship journey. And then for reference, 1 Samuel 12:12. And you guys can go look that up and study it on your own, but that's just a reference. And then also, shameless plug, make sure you go get Marlena's book. I was going to say this at the end, but go get the book and you'll see what I mean. But everything in this book is really, for me, kind of like a roadmap, if you will. And it's talking about everything that I go through as a creative in my journey. For example, I think when I first started reading the devotional, the first thing that I opened up to was Behold My Gangsta. Hey, you feel me? So, as a creative entrepreneur, sometimes you get this little bit of gangster in you and you feeling like, yes, behold my gangster. So when I read this book, I read this devotional every week with a certain air about me, not an arrogance, but just like, yes, God, like, behold my gangster. Like, Jesus is my homeboy. He got me. I already have everything that I need. And whatever I touch is going to turn to gold.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about some of the devotionals and your thought process. And you talked about your advertising job when you were talking about you have everything that you need. And I want to know if you can share with us a little bit more when you thought about you didn't know that you had everything that you needed. But at that time when you realized, oh my gosh, I really do have everything that I need. What was God speaking to you during that time for you to have that revelation to walk in the boldness that God gave you to walk out your God-given gifts and talents?
Yeah, that is a good question. It's definitely something that didn't come right away. Like, so my leap into entrepreneurship, even now, I just quit my job officially, like no job right now. It's been about a month at this point. But back while I was working in advertising, I had God leads you, right, over the years. So, 2 years out of college, I knew that full-time entrepreneurship was what he wanted me to do. And I actually left my first job to get into full-time entrepreneurship. I was doing my business, living at home with mama, so it wasn't that hard to do. But, making my little money, and God had actually provided me another job at my church to just sort of sustain me through that process while I was building my business. And I did that for a little while, but then I got antsy. And I was like, I need to go and get my dream job in advertising because, I hadn't really had that experience yet out of college and I really wanted it. And God let me know then, like, you don't need that. I had the church that I was going to at the time, First Lady literally told me, because I was telling her, like, she knew everything about my business already. And I was telling her, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go get this job. And she was like, why? Like, and I was like, well, I need to understand my industry more. I need to understand like this and that. And she was like, no, like you have enough knowledge already. Like you just need to keep going and keep building it out. But I didn't listen. I sure didn't listen to her. And so, I would say that it really didn't, I went and got the job. And I talk about this in the book. And I knew before I got the job that it really wasn't what God wanted me to do, but I just had to do it. So I wouldn't say, so 3 years later, I think it just became clear to me that if, God has shown me the vision he has for my life, and I know what I'm here for. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it if I stayed at my job. And so, I don't know if it was a revelation of realizing that I have everything that I need, because I think even still, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And even still, I left that job to get another job that was a little bit, the hours were better so I could focus on business. But I don't think the revelation of having everything that I need came until I realized, I shouldn't have done this. I really did. Like when I thought about, that's when it came, was when I really realized where I could have been had I stayed in building my business. 3 years of not really building it at the level that I could have been building it, and where I could have been even now. Like I even look at different people that are out there, influencers or designers, and I'm like, wow, like I could have been at that level had I just kept going like God told me to do.
Right. Exactly.
So, I would say that's when it hit. It was like, wow. And, I'm not beating myself up about it by any means. You just realize in your journey that you take different turns and they take you where they take you. But I would say that that's really when it hit me. And that's when that along with the fact that just seeing what I needed to do and the time that I needed to be able to do it, like I had to make a move, and just follow God and just move.
Right. It's so funny how sometimes God will impress upon us when to be still. And because we get so anxious, we're ready to move ahead of him. And he'll let us go too.
So will.
He'll let us go. So it's really interesting that you share that perspective, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs really don't share a lot about really going through that type of process. We see where you are right now, but we don't see what you had to go through to get there. And so I appreciate your openness and sharing that with us.
Definitely. Oh, it's necessary. We have to share more. Like I share all my whole world in this book. And then also, I mean, shameless plug, but I do send out a newsletter every Tuesday. So, I continue to share what I'm learning, the nuggets that I'm gaining in that. And it's therapeutic to share. So I don't know why more people don't,
Right. It really is. And, speaking of your weekly newsletter, like I look forward to your weekly newsletters. They give me so much life throughout the week. So that is also something else that you guys should get on. If you're not already, make sure that you get on the weekly newsletter. It's really, really good.
Thank you.
You
Yes.
snatch edges in the evening time. I sent you a message saying, girl, you snatched my edges already.
Yes.
I was like, in the morning, I'm like, oh, so I read this in the morning before I go to work. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling it. And then I come home to my weekly newsletter. I'm like, oh, my gosh, it took me all the way out here. So it's, and when God is telling you to do something, when you send out something and it reaffirms what God already told you. And it may not hit everybody in the same season, but you can always go back and reference them. And then you're like, oh, it makes sense. Because a lot of times when God gives us a word, sometimes it may not be for us. It may be for somebody else, or it may not be for that season, but it kind of stores up the word in you. So one of the things I also wanted to ask you is, you just mentioned that you left your full-time job. So don't think that we're going to skate past that. It's like, oh yeah, I left my job and do. Oh, wait a minute, too, back up. Let's go back. So you made the big leap. You quit your full-time job to pursue your purpose and your passion to create.
Yes.
Okay, I want to hear all the juicy details. Tell me, why did you quit your job and what's next for you?
Girl, listen. So, I mean, all I can say is God told me to do it. Like, and I don't.
You listened that time.
And I listened. No, listen. Look, I told you it's been a process. Okay, like I jumped and then I jumped back in, and now like okay, we official now. But it was one of those. I've been preparing because like I said, I left my job in advertising. I got a job literally and working in insurance. Just to pay the bills while I continue to build this book business. And so I've known and been preparing for leaving my job. And I thought this year might be the year. And but I was thinking probably toward the end of this year, most likely it's going to be 2020. Let's be honest. Right. But that's kind of where my mindset was late this year, early next. I was like, I'm going to have everything in place. It's going to work. And I would say around about March. Yeah, it was in March. God started knocking nah, fam, this is what we gonna do. So I would say I probably got a series of I counted them up because I actually wrote them down. I got 11 signs, and I don't even know, I'm not a big person who believes in signs or anything like that. But when God is trying to talk to you, I truly believe he will confirm it. And I asked him to, I'm like, Lord, whatever you need me to, if I'm not getting it, make it clear to me. And so, I mean, girl, when I tell you, from really divinely just guided conversations with people to one of my best friends having a dream about me, literally in the dream, she said, I jumped off a bridge into a lake. And I'm like, what the heck? And I mean, from sermons on Sundays that were one sermon I went in and the pastor literally opened up. Now went and visited the church, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't even my church, and literally opened up the sermon talking about sometimes you got to take a leap when you don't know where your feet gonna land. And I'm just like, this is what we doing?
Really?
And that was after maybe 3 or 4, previous signs happening, and a bunch of things happened after that. So I was just like, okay, God, I hear you. It sounds to me you want me to leave sooner than I was preparing to leave. So I guess we're going to do this. And so, I think I had prayed and just was like, okay, I sense that you want me to leave sooner, Lord. is it like, you want me to put in my notice tomorrow? Like, how quick?
How soon we talking?
How soon we talking? And so, I got a sense that he was just like, you need to do it quickly. And so, I actually gave my job, I think 6 or 7 weeks notice. And I was like, that's going to give me a couple more paychecks to just,
right.
prepare myself. Cause I hadn't saved up what the goal savings that I wanted to have in order to do this. And I hadn't yet established the income stream in my business that I felt comfortable, living off of yet. And so I was just like, oh God, are you serious about this?
Right.
But yeah, the network that God has given me, and I had, multiple people just pouring encouragement into me from, friends and family who have taken their own leap. Or, I had one good friend who, disobeyed God. She knew he was telling her to do something and she didn't do it. And she was like, girl, listen, you would rather do what he told you to do than not. As scary as it is,
right.
and as unprepared as you feel, it's better to just do what he tells you to do. And so I took it. So this was not by any means the fully prepared, situation at all. It was definitely just me truly just obeying God. That was it at the end of the day. But it's been so amazing.
I can't even imagine. I can't wait to hear. I'm going to check in with you in about 3 months to see all this goodness, because I know you're working on some good stuff over there. I don't know if you're able to talk about it right now, but I know you're working on a course, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. So definitely going to start coaching. I have a lot of expertise that I want to share with the people. And just recently, God really, I've known I wanted to coach, but I really haven't known my target audience at this point. But just recently, he kind of revealed, and I can talk about it too. I know that I'm going to work with authors.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, which is something I wasn't really planning to do. But I really feel led to share, as I'm learning and growing in business, and the way that I've been sharing it in the book is how I'm going to share it in my coaching. So whatever I'm learning and whatever I've mastered, I'm going to coach and train that. And so right now I'm going to be working with people who want to self-publish their books.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to generate, through the grace of God, a lot of buzz around the book, and a lot of, I've been able to sell a little something and all of those things. So I'm going to be downloading that into my people. And that's really more so on my personal brand side, but there's a whole lot coming for the brand, the Big Idea Food brand.
I'm really excited about that.
Yes, honey, there's just good things. I just want to continue to expand it. I want to continue to give people, love and encouragement from God who are building and creating. And that's what the brand is all about. It's always going to be about nourishing you. And so I want to develop more, tell more stories is really one of my biggest things that I want to do. The book so far has been about my own journey and all of that, but I want to start to share other people's stories. So I got a podcast coming up soon. So I'll be hollering at you.
I'm so excited.
Yes. Podcast, more products. A daily version of the devotional is coming down the pipeline.
Okay, come on, 365.
Yes, honey. Yes, we're going to get that. That's why I need other stories, because I can't write 365 things about myself. I just don't have it.
So, but I tapped out at 52. That's
I'm tapped out.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. So thank you so much for coming by and talking about Big Idea Food. I know we didn't get into the depth of the book, but I wanted to leave something to be desired for folks so they can come out and invest and sow a seed into Big Idea Food and see for themselves how you're pouring into creative entrepreneurs and just sharing biblical truths to really uplift, empower, and encourage other entrepreneurs to go out here and pursue the purpose that God has for them. So thank you for that. But before we go, I want to know, how can we stay connected to you after the show? And also, how can we get signed up on your newsletter?
Yes. So you can definitely connect with me. I'm always on IG. Instagram is my happy place. So I'm at Marlena Banks on Instagram. I'm also at Big Idea Food. So you can hit me up there, DM me, say what's up, whatever. But then if you would like to learn more about Big Idea Food, you can go to bigideafood.com. And to subscribe to the newsletter, it's all over the place. So you'll get there. But bigideafood.com/subscribe. And I will start sending you a devotional every single Tuesday to snatch all the edges. And
yes. And then put them back on after reading Big Idea Food.
Gently and kindly with love.
Yes. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. No, girl, but it's been an honor for me to sit and chat with you and get to know a little bit more about you. And I can't wait to connect with you in the near future.
Same. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast, as I knew it would be. I love your spirit. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Purpose to Create podcast. Share, like, comment, or review this episode. Check out the show notes at www.purposetocreatepodcast.com and connect with us online at Purpose to Create.